Up on Network Africa. At least 5 people killed during protests against the United Nations in the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo. French President Emmanuel Macron in Cameroon to begin 3-nation Africa tour. Plus, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa lays out plans to fix the country's energy crisis. And welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where at least 5 people have been killed during anti-UN protests. Demonstrators set fires and forced entry into the United Nations mission's facilities in the eastern city of Goma, demanding that the peacekeeping forces in the country leave amid rising insecurity in the region. Well, demonstrations have continued for a second day, with the protesters demanding the departure of MONUSCO forces. Hundreds of people blocked roads and chanted anti-UN slogans on Monday before breaking into the headquarters of the UN peacekeeping mission in Goma. That's an important commercial hub in North Kivu province. Protesters are said to have smashed windows and looted computers, furniture and other valuables from the headquarters, while UN police officers fired tear gas in a bid to push them back. Helicopters are said to have airlifted some UN officials from the overrun headquarters. Well, the UN peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, has come under regular criticism for its perceived inability to stop the fighting in the conflict-torn eastern region. In Tanzania, 8 children, a teacher and a driver have died after a minibus ferrying them to primary school fell into a roadside ditch in southern Tanzania. The police chief of Mtwara region adds that 19 other pupils from King David School were injured in the accident on Tuesday morning. The injured are being treated now at the Mtwara Referral Hospital, even as authorities are investigating the cause of the accident. The president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, is said to have sent condolences to the families of the deceased. French President Emmanuel Macron is on a 3-nation tour of African states in his first trip to the continent since winning re-election, as he seeks to reboot France's post-colonial relationship with Africa. The president's July 25 to 28 tour began in Cameroon, where he arrived on Monday evening. Well, after Cameroon, Mr. Macron plans to visit Benin and Guinea-Bissau. He's expected to meet with Cameroon's President Paul Biya and various members of the Cameroonian civil service. Well, this trip to Cameroon is set to focus on the food crisis caused by the war in Ukraine, and it will also be an opportunity to prepare for the next Africa-France summit. In the meantime, a collective of Cameroonian political parties are calling on President Macron to recognize France's colonial crimes. The United Nations senior official for Africa, Martha Ama Akia-Pobe, is warning that the Security Council that the overall situation in Libya remains highly volatile despite progress that have been achieved. According to Ms. Pobe, the economic situation remains dire, with an increased number of clashes in and around the capital, Tripoli. The Assistant Secretary General also highlighted the demonstrations of the last few months, saying they were conducted by frustrated Libyans over the lack of progress on elections and poor state services.
The overall situation in Libya remains highly volatile. Despite progress achieved, the constitutional and political stalemate persists, prolonging the tense security environment with an increased number of clashes in and around Tripoli. The economic situation remains dire, exacerbated by the politicization of the National Oil Corporation. We have witnessed demonstrations by frustrated Libyans over the lack of progress on elections and poor state services. In addition, the human rights situation in the country still remains of serious concern. We are deeply concerned about the armed clashes in Tripoli that took place on the night of 21st July and skirmishes in Misrata on 23rd of July between armed groups, resulting in an unconfirmed number of civilian casualties. The human rights situation in Libya remains of serious concern. The dire economic situation has had a negative impact on people's fundamental rights to basic services and access to food, water, and sanitation, healthcare, and education.
A former Zambian minister says the spillover effect from Ukraine crisis has affected the imports of many essential commodities to African countries, which has become a destabilizing factor in the continent. Robert Shishinga, former Minister of Trade, Commerce and Industry of Zambia, said the Ukraine crisis has hit hard global supply chains, with many African countries encountering difficulties in importing some bulk commodities that are essential to people's livelihood, such as grain and fertilizers.
The supply chains are impacted very negatively, and some of the countries have not been able, so African countries have not been able to get their usual supply of wheat, mostly from Ukraine, some of it from Russia. But for Zambia, I think in particular, the ones that would be most impactful for us is the supply of fertilizers, because Russia is the cheapest supply of fertilizers. So that in itself, it becomes a destabilizing factor. Any country sending weapons now into Ukraine is just escalating the war. It's not solving the war. It's escalating the war. And clearly we, mostly here as Zambia, I'm sure, and also as Africa, we want peace everywhere. If we can achieve that, that would be the greatest situation. The supply chains are impacted very negatively. And some of the countries have not been able, so African countries have not been able to get their usual supply of wheat, mostly from Ukraine.
South Africa plans to try and resolve its power shortage by making it easier for private companies to build plants and paying households and businesses to produce electricity from solar panels. Well, power utility Eskom has for the past decade resorted to load shedding to help sustain the power grid, but that has affected economic growth and job creation, with Eskom's debt at almost 400 billion rand and unable to meet demand from its fleet of aging and poorly maintained coal-fired plants. Well, our channel's television South Africa correspondent Brian Pugani gives us more details in this report.
In the past 3 weeks, severe load shedding has disrupted all of our lives.
President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the nation on the country's power challenges, which has affected businesses and households, and has seen power utility Eskom moving to stage 6 load shedding in recent weeks.
The set of additional actions I'm announcing this evening, firstly, are aimed at improving the performance of Eskom's existing fleet of power stations. Secondly, these actions will accelerate the procurement of new generation capacity. Thirdly, these actions are intended to increase the private sector investment in generation capacity. Fourthly, these actions are designed to enable businesses as well as households to invest in rooftop solar installation. And finally, these actions are directed at fundamentally transforming the electricity sector and positioning it for future sustainability.
Eskom has been struggling for the past decade to supply reliable energy to the country, with issues ranging from maintenance on power plants, breakdowns, theft, fraud and sabotage, and this has hindered investor confidence and economic growth. President Ramaphosa says Eskom will add new generational capacity in the next coming months.
Over the next 3 months, Eskom will take additional actions to add new generation capacity to the grid on an urgent basis. As an immediate measure, surplus capacity will be bought from existing independent power producers. These are power plants which built more capacity than was required and can now supply this excess power to Eskom. As part of addressing the shortage of megawatts, Eskom will now also purchase additional energy from existing private generators such as mines, paper mills, shopping centers, and other private entities that have surplus power.
South Africans have been urged to continue to help government in using electricity sparingly to help with the power grid and to also resort to other possible sources, including solar, to help ease the burden of power outages. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Brian Pugeni, Channels Television News.
Well, Tunisia's President Kais Saied has been celebrating his apparent victory in a referendum on a new constitution that gives him almost unlimited powers. Mr. Saied appeared in front of jubilant supporters after an exit poll indicated more than 90% of those who had voted had supported the president's plan. But the turnout for that vote was only 27.5%, with main opposition parties boycotting the poll. The president's opponents say his changes would just entrench the personal powers he seized a year ago. But Mr. Saied says the turnout that was announced by the country's electoral commission had been higher. Voting had taken place over 2 days. He promised that Tunisia would now enter a new phase after a decade of political deadlock. But his opponents will cite the low turnout as denying legitimacy to what they see as a worrying move back to autocracy. The leader of Ethiopia's rebel Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, says the group will not negotiate on the disarmament of the Tigray army. Well, speaking at a news briefing, Debretsion Gebremichael says Western Tigray should be given back to Tigray. According to the constitution, Western Tigray belongs to Tigray and the Ethiopian government should hand it over to Tigray. It adds that if the handover is done, it stands to benefit the people of Tigray. In the meantime, the two sides are preparing to hold peace talks with the federal government to end the civil war that has killed thousands of people and displaced millions since November 2020. Well, authorities in Ethiopia's eastern Somali region say the army, working with regional forces, have killed 85 members of the Somali Islamist group Al-Shabaab. The army says they captured many other militants in the operation that was concentrated on 5 towns on the border where the Al-Qaeda-linked group have bases. Well, the action comes in response to an attack last week on Ethiopian forces near the border with Somalia. Witnesses say they saw the militants in several vehicles crossing into Ethiopian territory and that intense fighting had taken place. In that attack, Al-Shabaab said it had killed more than 80 soldiers. Still ahead on the program. A Nigerian woman recycles prosthetics to help amputee children walk again. Details in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back to the program. We continue in Zimbabwe, where the country has launched gold coins to be sold to the public, and it's in a bid to curb an inflation spike that has eroded the country's unstable currency. Well, the move was announced by the country's central bank, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, which disbursed 2,000 coins to commercial banks. The gold coin is called Moisoya Tunya, which in the local Tonga language refers to Victoria Falls. The central bank says the coin will have liquid asset status, meaning they will be capable of being easily converted to cash and will be tradable locally and internationally.
The bank has today released the first batch of 2,000 Moisoya Tunya gold coins to the market. Local agents commenced selling the gold coin on an agency basis at the initial price of $1,823.80 per gold coin.
We can't even afford that money. 1,800 is too much. Even 100 to get 100 US is very difficult. You can just see the pay which is given to the civil servants is too little. So for the rest of for the majority of people, I think it will be very difficult for them to get those coins.
Inflation inongokonzerwa is a symptom yekuti zvinhu hazvisi kufamba zvakanaka munyika. Inflation is a symptom as well yekuti hapana trust kucurrency inenge ichishandiswa. For example, togona kuisa 100 bond yakaiswa yamunambuya nehanda yaya. Vanhu havasi kuitrasta. Remember, mangwana inflation of ikakwira, you see.
Well, to help us understand the central bank's plan with the launch of these gold coins, we have Zimbabwean journalist George Mushumba joining us for more on this. Hello, George. Thank you for speaking to us. Talk to us more about what the plan is by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, with the introduction of these gold coins.
The Reserve Bank's initial plan was to stem the dependence on the United States dollar because they feel that it is the reason why our inflation rate is going up. The insatiable demand for the United States dollar. So with the introduction of the gold coins, it gives an alternative for those with local currency, the Zim dollar, to be able to buy the gold coins instead of rushing to the United States dollar, which has resulted in the prices of goods and services going up because most of the manufacturers, most of the retailers use the dollar rate on the black market to set the prices of goods, and these have been going up exponentially for the past 6 months, resulting in most prices being out of reach of most people. So the reason why the RBZ, that is the central bank, decided to use the gold coins to say, look, if you have excess Zimbabwe dollars, why don't you buy the gold coins and not put too much pressure on demand for the United States dollar? So basically that has been the reason. I know that some people were saying that it will stabilize prices, but speaking to the RBZ governor yesterday, he said that it's more of a store of value, an alternative to the use of the United States dollar so that there's less pressure there.
George, for the average Zimbabwean, how is this now expected to, help their standard of living? What has been the reaction?
At the moment, thank you for that question. There will be no reprieve for those without the 1,000 US dollars, 1,000 US dollars and above to be able to purchase these coins. This is basically targeting those who have access liquidity in the form of Zimbabwe dollars. So you will see the price is at 1,800 United States dollars for one gold coin. And so for the poor people, there's no relief yet. The governor said that he is going to introduce lower denominated gold coins so that those who are also in the lower income bracket or those with less money can also be able to purchase these gold coins. The target really, as I mentioned in the first part of your question, was that most companies which are paid by government for contracts such as building roads, building infrastructure, were getting huge amounts in Zimbabwe dollars, and they used to go, and they still go and buy United States dollar as a store of value. So government through the Reserve Bank is saying, look, why don't you buy these gold coins so that you don't flood the market and you push up the rate of the United States dollar. For the moment, there is no reprieve for those without the money.
All right then, thank you, George Mushumba there, a Zimbabwean journalist joining us from Harare. Well, a Nigerian woman is using her foundation to help many with rare congenital limb conditions walk again. She does this by recycling prosthetics from those who have outgrown theirs and making it affordable to low-income earners. Well, this has helped put a smile on the faces of many Nigerians.
Nigerian mother of two, Crystal Chibu, wept for many nights after her daughter was born with a rare congenital limb condition, which doctors said had to be amputated. She and her husband at first refused to accept the diagnosis, but when her daughter Beulah started asking why she could not walk like her friends, this forced the parents to make the hard decision of getting the little girl amputated and fitted with a prosthesis. Crystal decided to blog about her journey, and after hearing other parents talk about their experiences, Beulah started Irede Foundation, which has given hundreds of recycled prostheses for free to children in Nigeria.
There was no one sharing their story or saying anything about, having a child with congenital deformity and then having the leg of that child amputated. So pretty much, it was, first of all, I just wanted to share my story. Maybe someone else would, identify with what it is that I have, and then see how, in a nutshell, I can help other people.
Basit Kosim and his mother, Mutiat, are at the foundation for his first prosthesis fitting. He will soon be one of the Irede Foundations, as they refer to all their beneficiaries.
It's been 13 years since I gave birth to him. Today's the happiest day for me because I never imagined I would have the opportunity to get an artificial limb for him. I'm so happy.
Kosim was born without his lower right limb and has only walked with crutches, which has affected his education and ability to socialize and play soccer. Kosim says the new limb will help him focus more on school and assist him when he plays football with his friends. Crystal's foundation receives old prostheses from those who have outgrown theirs, or sometimes from international donors, then takes out all the reusable parts to produce another one. Recycling helps her bridge the gap of affordability for low-income families. A prosthesis can cost from 2,500 USD to about 10,000 USD, and depending on the age and growth rate of the child, will need to be changed at least every 9 to 18 months.
That donate their old prosthesis, or maybe they got another one as a result of insurance and they just want to give it out. So we take out the components that are usable and we're able to put that together to use for a child, or sometimes even donate it to adults that need limbs.
7-year-old Tofumi Adekboju is a double amputee, born with a deformity on both legs, and after several failed attempts for corrective surgeries, it took a chance meeting between his mother and Crystal Chibu when he was 5 years old before she made a decision to have his legs amputated, giving him the opportunity to live an independent life. While any child between the ages of 2 and 18 years whose parents cannot afford a prosthesis can walk into the Irede Foundation's offices and join the pool of those waiting to get one, the foundation tries to prioritize children who should be in school over those who are not yet in school.
When the prosthesis has been given, it has been joy, because he tells me, Mommy, I went outside, I went to buy things by myself. Even somebody celebrated birthday today, I went out to take picture. So you can see the expression of joy even in him.
Crystal's foundation also assists adults or parents who can't afford to pay for a limb get access to one. Crystal hopes to have a bigger space to accommodate a training center for limb technicians and a rehabilitation facility.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.